Yeah, yo creo que mucha gente no dijera nada acerca de los criminales, right? Si se están llevando a los criminales, pero se están llevando a la gente trabajadora en la calle, los vendedores ambulantes,
Sí, no.
los jardineros. I know you said that, you know, they have the right to arrest people and enforce laws. But are you for that? What do you
No,
think?
absolutely
Let's
not.
clear it up. I think we need to make sure people know where you stand on that.
That's why I did that. What I'm saying is we can't stop them
Right.
from...
DJ Eddie.
Bienvenido a Mega, Antonio Villaraigosa. Hey, man. OG de Los Ángeles.
An OG, baby. That's what I am.
OG de Los Ángeles, ex-mayor de Los Ángeles y ahora candidato a gobernador del estado de California.
Es cierto. DJ 81.
Hey, aquí para servirte.
I love it, man.
Eddie.
I love your story, brother.
Gracias.
I love your
gracias.
story. It's a story of triumph. It's a story of overcoming the odds. It's a story of making it in this great country. And I know you're proud, and I am too.
Gracias. That means a lot to me. So yo soy inmigrante. Llegué aquí cuando tenía 11 años y, work my way up. Y voy con mucha gente inmigrante aquí hoy en día. Y quién iba a pensar, right, de que un niño inmigrante iba a estar aquí en la radio doing a show.
Started out in high school promoting events,
Yeah.
DJing, become a big dog now, and the OG is paying respects and coming by to say hello. I also grew up in a tough neighborhood. I grew up in City Terrace and Bow Heights.
Oh, wow.
Latchkey kid. I grew up in a home of domestic violence and alcoholism with a mother who struggled to make ends meet every single day. And father left when we were 5, and she raised 4 kids on her own and put them through college and gave us the life that we've been able to enjoy. And so it's great to see another one who's struggled, que tenía ganas, and pegándolo duro, ¿no? Isn't that what we do?
No, yeah. Yo nunca pensé que iba a estar haciendo esto. ¿Tú cuándo pensaste cuándo dijiste, hey, quiero entrarle a la política? ¿Cómo es que comenzó lo de la política para ti?
I never really thought of running for office. Mm-hmm. I did think about changing the world. And I tell people I watched civil rights marchers, mostly black, getting bit by dogs and water hoses, throwing them to the ground and beaten for the simple right to vote. And so early on, I got involved in the Black Student Union at 15 years old, and then the United Mexican American Students a couple of months later, and led the walkouts in my high school. And like so many young people in that time, wanted to get involved. So I got involved in the farm worker boycott, the Chicano movement, a civil rights movement later on. And I've been involved my whole life. And I tell people I'm running for governor because this state has given me so much. It's given me more than I could have ever hoped for growing up here. But it's a state with big challenges.
Yeah.
And you said it, and I'm going to say it. It needs an OG, a proven problem solver. I don't need training wheels on my first day as governor. I was speaker of I was a civil rights leader, a labor leader, president of the ACLU, later became majority whip, majority leader, and speaker of the California State Assembly. Balanced 2 budgets with a surplus when I was speaker, with a Republican and a Democratic governor. By the way, we don't balance budgets very often now. We're always, in a deficit. And largest expansion of healthcare. I don't know if you remember Healthy Families.
Yeah.
It was a medical program for kids who didn't have money and families who didn't have money. The author of the toughest assault weapons ban, the biggest effort to clean up the air. When I was in the legislature, I got the big things done. Then later I became mayor. We were talking about where we grew up. And when I became mayor, LA was the most violent big city in America.
I remember.
The gang capital of the world, Mara, 18th Street, The Bloods and the Crips all started in L.A. And we took crime down nearly 50%, 48% to be exact.
I did my research. Yeah, murder rates, homicide rates
went
were
dramatically
cut in half,
down.
like almost in half, right?
That's exactly right. And grew the cops by 1,000 people, took guns off the streets, but also did other things. Dramatically expanded after-school programs. And you were in an after-school program. Yeah. And I did because a lot of these kids were like me, latchkey kids. And they needed a place to study, to play, to socialize with other kids and not be in the streets. I dramatically expanded summer youth jobs, giving kids a job. I remember what it was to have a job as a kid and give them opportunity to learn the world of work and the skills that come with that. And did things like Summer Night Lights, opened up parks, 32 parks in the areas with the highest gun violence during the summer. 76 drop in gun violence in those neighborhoods. We had midnight basketball, midnight soccer, Zumba for the moms, first-rate movies. Got the Hollywood producers and movie studios to give us first-rate movies. Had blacks and browns, because that's who primarily lived in these communities, interacting with each other, which they hadn't done because they mostly stuck to themselves. And so it was an opportunity to make investments in people that really took crime down.
Yeah. No, that definitely made a big impact back in the days. And you know, looking at your resume, crime was down when you were an LA mayor. Who do you think right now is the biggest challenge in the governor race that you have to defeat, or whoever the media is calling right now as the front runner?
Well, before I say that, you know what I think I want to answer the biggest challenge first. Mm-hmm. You know what the biggest challenge is, Eddie? Eduardo?
Dime.
Is that people are apathetic or they feel defeated. You know, with Trump, ICE raids, with everything he's been doing to undermine our democracy, with his tariffs, which are taxes that are causing everybody's groceries and everything else to go up. I think people are feeling kind of defeated. And a lot of people, when they feel defeated, get apathetic because they feel like there's nothing that they can do, that they can't make a difference. So that's the biggest challenge. And it's the reason why I wanted to come on this show. You know, elections are about the future. I've done a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I said what I did on crime. 1 out of 3 schools were failing when I was mayor. A 60% increase in the graduation rate when I was left. I have the schools of Boyle Heights, downtown, and South LA and Watts. Number 1 American city in reducing greenhouse gases. Number 5 in the world, and built more infrastructure than anybody. Put people to work building that subway that's coming very, very soon. But I tell people, a lot of young people just don't understand that their vote counts. And we got to get young people out to vote.
Yeah.
Because you said it, and I'm going to use that word a few times. I'm an OG. I've been around. I fought my whole life for our community, speaking up for immigrants. But I want to run for governor because I know that we need to attract a lot more young people to our politics. We need to get them to run for governor too. And so I bring the experience to help train that new generation of leadership. And I want them to come because that's how I started. I wanted to change the world, and I'm now in a position where I get to train young people to change the world too.
That's a really major point de todo lo que estás diciendo. You mentioned schools right now, LAUSD. So LAUSD ahorita acaba de anunciar de que van a cortar 2,000 empleos. ¿Qué crees acerca de eso? ¿Cómo tú ayudarías a LAUSD para que no corten estos empleos si te elejan a ti como gobernador?
Mira, hay pocas cosas al nivel de importancia al nivel de educación. Es la seguridad, educación, salud médica. Y la verdad es que cuando tenemos que cortar, deberíamos cortar arriba, la administración, no los aulas y las salones de clase. Tenemos que invertir más en los maestros, por ejemplo. Pero ahorita somos número 1 en el gasto por educación, no, en los sueldos para los maestros. 21 en el gasto per cápita que invertimos en la educación. Pero 35 en leer y matemática, y tenemos la último puesto en graduación. Estamos abajo, el último en los Estados Unidos. So we have a lot of work to do.
Those are not good numbers.
Those aren't good numbers.
Those aren't good numbers.
And especially the graduation rate. And so what I've said is we got to invest in education. I will do everything I can as governor to help LA Unified. But we have to make sure that we're pushing accountability, that we're improving reading and math, and that we're graduating our kids.
Yeah.
And that starts with high expectations. That starts with making investment with the kids that need it the most. And I intend to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this documentary. I just saw this documentary about Mississippi. Mississippi was ranked like almost dead last in education. And they went from like 40-something to like top 15.
Exactly. They're actually in the top 10 in reading and math in the fourth grade. They're still down in graduation. They're doing things like phonics.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing things like focusing on the science of reading and math.
Yeah.
And we've got to do the same. We've got to put the interests of kids before the interest of powerful interests, the interest, of adults. And what I've said is money needs to follow the kid, and particularly the kids that need it the most. I grew up, I told you how I grew up. I was the first to graduate from college and go to law school. I needed a lot more support than my kids did. Their father was a powerful man. They've had opportunities that I didn't have as a kid. So we've got to focus on the kids that need it the most to bring them up. That will do the best bang for the buck in terms of making investment.
Yeah, you think we should do something similar to what they're doing in that state, where they're sending
Absolutely.
They're sending people to train the teachers.
Absolutely.
And that's how they got the reading grades for the kids much higher. Ahora hay que cambiar to the cost of living. You mentioned groceries, man. Groceries are through the roof right now. How are you going to be able to combat some of these tariffs, or is there even a way to combat these tariffs? Because we can say, we can do something about it, but how are we going to do it if they're coming from the top, from the federal government?
California was one of the states that sued on the tariffs.
I saw that.
And we won at the Supreme Court level. They said the president doesn't have a right to unilaterally raise tariffs without approval of the Congress. Unfortunately, the Congress in the House and the Senate is controlled by Republicans, and they've abrogated their duty. They've failed in their duty to have the checks and balances we need. But of course, Trump doesn't respect the rule of law, and immediately after opining that the tariffs, which are taxes, were illegal, he's now said, okay, I can't do tariffs of 100%, 50%, 150%. So now he's doing tariffs of 10 and 15. Even that can and should be challenged, and I'm hoping that California will do that. I certainly will do that if I'm governor. But what I've said is we've got to do a lot to protect our citizens by enforcing the laws we have here with respect to Trump.
Yeah, let's talk about ICE now. I know in your ad, I saw the ad that's running on TV right now. You said that you're going to tackle the ICE raids. In what ways can you stop the government from doing what they're doing right now? For example, going into people's homes without search warrants, without any type of paperwork from courts. How can the state challenge that? Can you prosecute, not you as yourself, but can the state prosecute these officers in case they violate any laws? And can the state prosecute them? I think Illinois and Chicago has mentioned something similar.
Yeah, a number of there are people in the California legislature that have talked about this. There are states that are looking at this and have done some of this. But let's be clear, nobody has as comprehensive of an ICE plan as I do. I said on day one, I'm going to put executive directives to protect kids. There are kids in detention centers just for kids, and they need to have standards, health standards, food standards, cleanliness standards, safety standards. And I've argued that I'll do an executive directive day one on those issues, putting a multi-agency task force to oversee those detention centers which are in California. We'll do the same for adult detention centers. Secondly, we'll look at warrantless arrest. ICE officers unidentified, without body cameras and without, covered from head to toe. Warrantless arrest in schools, hospitals, homes, or places of business. They have a right to arrest people. I've said from day one, look, every country has border enforcement. Our country has a right to enforce the borders. We should do so humanely. We shouldn't be ripping kids off from their parents. We should respect, human rights and civil rights. By the same token, I don't think anybody wants to protect violent and serious felons.
Right. Which that's what we were told. That's what they were going to target.
Exactly. But that's not what's happening. The vast majority of these people, the only crime they've committed, crossing the border. And so what I've said is we've got to stand up for the rule of law. They have a right to arrest people. We can't stop them from arresting people. What we can do is say that it should be done in a lawful manner, in a manner that respects the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And as I said, I'm an OG. I'm a proven problem solver. I go way back in these fights. I was president of the American Civil Liberties Union. I was in the movement, the Chicano and civil rights movement. I was a labor leader. We need somebody like that to take on Donald Trump. I say, who better to do that than someone with that kind of experience? I was fighting for immigrants. Estábamos hablando español.
Yeah.
Cuando empecé de joven, ni hablábamos español en la casa. Soy tercera generación americano de descendencia mexicana. Mi mamá decidió hablar inglés para protegernos. Mi papá se fue de 5 años. Él sí era inmigrante, pero nos dejó de 5 años. Yo hablaba solamente el inglés. Aprendí el español defendiendo el inmigrante. He estado en todas las estaciones de radio de California de habla hispana. ¿Por qué? Porque me conocen como alguien, el defensor del inmigrante, alguien que siempre ha luchado para nuestra gente.
Yo creo que mucha gente no dijera nada acerca de los criminales, right? Si se están llevando a los criminales, pero se están llevando a la gente trabajadora en la calle, los vendedores ambulantes,
Sí, no.
los jardineros. I know you said that, they have the right to arrest people and enforce laws. But are you for that?
No, absolutely
let's
not.
clear it up. I think we need to make sure people know where you stand on that.
That's why I did that. What I'm saying is we can't stop them from deporting people that aren't here with documentation.
Right.
But we could stand up and we could participate, for instance, in efforts to protect those families by monitoring where ICE is, because I don't think the vast majority of us have bought into what they're doing and the way they're doing it. What they're doing right now is un-American. We have rights. Everyone has rights that lives here, and we should respect those rights. And they're not doing that. I've said many times, covered up from head to toe like the Ku Klux Klan, with assault weapons, flashbang grenades, violently arresting people. They just violently swarmed and threw her to the ground, an 80-year-old woman. They've arrested more than 170 U.S. citizens, even when they identify themselves as U.S. citizens. Arrested them, put them in detention centers, in some cases for weeks, without the due process that they deserve. So, yeah, we got to stand up to these. And no, I don't like them. But what I was saying is, unfortunately, they do have a right to arrest them. Though, let's be clear, as you said earlier, he said he was going to go after violent criminals, not just people that are working every single day. These are hard-working people who are trying to make a difference, whose kids are citizens, whose kids are going to college and starting businesses and buying homes like you did.
Let's switch it over to homelessness. Aquí en el estado de California hemos tenido un problema with homelessness for years. Y parece que gastamos y no se arregla el problema. Y como que se ha mejorado un poquito, pero not to the point where, like, you know, I know it's not easy, obviously, because there's a lot of people in drugs. There's a lot of people with mental issues and things like that. How can we fix that homelessness problem?
We spent $24 billion at the state, not counting tens of billions in cities and counties and school districts on homelessness. I've said we shouldn't criminalize homelessness. Some of these people need help. Well, all of these people need help, but some of them, as you said, are mentally ill. They're on drug rehab. We need to give them the resources. We need to build the housing. So I'm not for criminalization. I am for compassion, but I'm not for chaos. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. When you're selling drugs in front of cops, come on. No.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for most people. You can't be violent with people walking on the street. So what I've said is we need to not just throw money at the problem. We need to focus and invest on what works. As an example, we know one thing works. When people are on the verge of losing their apartment or their home, helping them stay in their apartment or home is the best way to stop them from going homeless. We know that Home Safe and other program has worked too. It's a program that the auditors said that program works as well, but everything else was inconclusive. And as you said, actually, homelessness went up. So we can't throw money at a problem. We got to build more housing. But the average homeless housing unit costs $850,000. Most of the young people watching or listening to your show can't afford it.
Yeah,
$850,000 apartments. And so what I've said is we need tiny homes because that's not sustainable. Tiny homes that cost $100,000, $130,000, and not $850,000. We need to say, as an example, that Democrats love to say that Ronald Reagan got rid of the mental hospitals, and he did 60 some odd years ago. Excuse me. We haven't. We've been in office for 28 years, and we haven't built new hospitals. And so what I've said is we need mental hospitals for some of these people, locked institutions. We need make it easier for some of them to be institutionalized. Right now, you have families that try to institutionalize a loved one, and it's very, very difficult. And we got to change that. Yeah. And we also need the services for the drug rehabilitation for these people. It's like a public health issue. It's not just a drug issue. It's a public health issue as well.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about your opponents. I think recently you said that one of your opponents should drop off completely from the race.
I was talking about Steve Hilton. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, tell me.
He wrote, after Jeffrey Epstein was a registered sex offender, been convicted for being a predator on young women. He wrote him, or he had his colleague write him, because he wanted to meet Woody Allen, who, for already a decade, had married his stepdaughter and used to refer to himself as a pervert. I said, look, anybody with a relationship or wanting a relationship with either one of those people shouldn't be in office. He's still running, so obviously that didn't affect him, but I think people find that reprehensible.
Yeah, so let's talk Epstein files, ya que lo mencionaste.
It happened in Florida. Mm-hmm. So only Florida and the federal government could do something.
Okay.
Or some of them happened in islands, I think. Only
Aquí el Estado
only
no podría hacer nada en eso. Okay. Back to the homeless crisis. You said that we've spent $24 billion on that. Y no se arregla el problema.
No, I think we can dramatically reduce homelessness in California. Eliminate it. Nobody's done it, so
yeah.
I'll say for now, dramatically reduce. But we're not going to do it looking for perfect. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do it just throwing money at problems. We need to invest in what works, stop doing what doesn't, and provide the services that people need and build the housing that they need so they're not homeless. But as I said, I also think we need locked mental institutions. We have very few of. We need to expand that. There are too many people on the street whose brains are either fried because of drugs or something else, and they need help.
Would you open those hospitals that you mentioned were closed, those mental institutions?
I think most of the experts say we shouldn't have such big hospitals, more community facilities, but locked.
Okay.
And we need more of them.
Now, I brought back the homelessness problem because you mentioned the tiny homes. Where would you put those tiny homes, and where would the money come from?
Well, we have money, but we're spending it on units that cost $850,000. In Santa Monica, $1.2 million. There are a lot of your listeners right now, high school, college, working. They can't afford an $850,000 unit. No. So just we need to get back to the basics, not look for perfect. They need shelter, but not necessarily an $850,000 unit.
Why do you think we're going for those expensive units?
We're looking for perfect, and because we're advocating things that, while they sound good, they're not sustainable over time.
Too expensive.
Too expensive.
Where would you put those tiny homes? If
you know, there's a lot of places you could put them. What's clear is every community needs to have to participate in providing shelter for these people.
What do you think? Is there anything?
No, nomás quiero decir gracias, Eddie.
No,
y
gracias
espero que me vas a invitar otra vez.
No, claro.
Y quiero decir a tus radio audientes, elecciones son importantes. Elections are important. In this country, everyone only has one vote, and every vote counts. And so I hope you'll get involved. I hope you'll not just listen to this interview, but come and volunteer with us, and, you know, get other young people to get involved. This election is about the future, and the future matters to all of us, but it particularly matters to you. And it's time for you all to get involved. Vamos a ganar si nuestra gente, incluyendo la juventud, participe. Si participamos, vamos a ganar. Ya es tiempo.
Ya, no ha habido un gobernador latino.
Nunca hemos elegido un gobernador de descendencia mexicana, un latino en la historia. Hemos tenido uno que se subió, que era vicegobernador, se subió por 9 meses y lo echaron de oficina. Pero nunca hemos elegido un latino. Ya es tiempo. Ya basta con estas redadas militares. Necesitamos a alguien que nos va a unir y que nos va a defender. Muchas gracias.
No, gracias. Sí, gracias a ti, Antonio, por haberte dado la vuelta.
DJ